Well, so pleased to have you back for another one of our studies in Psalms. We're going to be looking at Psalm 139, but we're going to take this in two parts. We'll obviously do part one today, and we're doing it thematically rather than in order. So I hope that doesn't mess you up too much. Anyway, follow along with the scripture we're looking at for today. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Well, David wrote this psalm, and we don't know for sure what the background was. We just know that he wrote it. But it's at a time when he apparently has been accused of wrongdoing. And it really bothers him because he knows that he didn't, well, he's been totally misunderstood. I think we've all had that problem from time to time where we've been misunderstood, or we had the best intentions and things went wrong, and so on. Well, that's where he found himself. But I think this was probably a little more serious than just a misunderstanding between like a husband and wife and so on, because he was the leader of a nation and so on. Well, when could it have occurred? Well, I think there's a couple of different times. Of course, he spent 10 years fleeing from Saul, fleeing for his life. And even though he tried to protect the interests of Israel during that whole time, there were those who naturally thought that he was a rebel and thought that he was trying to undermine Saul. Even though twice he had the opportunity to assassinate Saul, he did not do it. There was a time when he went over to, when he was fleeing from Saul, he went to be among the Philistines, who were the generations long enemies of Israel. And although, again, he did not harm any of the interests of Israel, he was still in the enemy's country and certainly would have been misunderstood for that back home. I think in my own mind, though, it may have been when, if you remember, when David became king, only Judah and Benjamin, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, followed him. And the other tribes stayed loyal to the son of Saul. But eventually there was that civil war went on, and eventually Abner, who was the general of the other side, decided enough was enough. And so he came and he brought a peace offer to David. And David made a treaty with him and so on. Well, Joab, the general of his army, was gone. And when he found out that Abner had been there, and he had a grudge with Abner from years ago, Joab lured Abner into what looked like a friendly meeting. Instead, he killed and he murdered Abner. And David was just distraught because Abner had come to Jerusalem, it would have been Hebron, in good faith. And here he was murdered by the general of David's forces. And David, if you remember, David came up with this dirge and this very sorrowful song about Abner's death. But certainly there have been people say, yeah, I heard what he said, but I really don't think he meant that. Anyway, there may have been another time that we don't know about that David was accused of wrongdoing, and his heart was broken over it. So he went to the Lord, and he wrote this song to plea to God about asking God to search him to make sure that his motives are in the right place. So he pleads with us in these verses we just read, that he pleads to God to search him. We think earlier of a character, Job. And we recall in the book of Job, we talk about the patience of Job. It really means the long suffering of Job, because he wasn't a patient man at all. He's very impatient because he wanted God to get him through this situation. And Job, if you recall, he said essentially he wanted to take God to court, and he wanted to plead his cause before God and say, what have I done to deserve this? What have I done? And so it was a heartfelt plea by Job to say, why am I going through this? He his friends were misunderstanding, saying, "Oh, you sinned, you sinned, you sinned." And he said, "No, I know I have not done anything that God would punish me in this way." So we too can find ourselves, our best intentions can work out badly. That we meant to do things well, or we tried to do things well. Things backfire. Sometimes we think we've done things right, and we do what we think is right in the moment. We don't know what to do. I don't know how many times I've been in a situation where I didn't know what to do. And I said, well, I have to do something. And so I chose it. And sometimes that worked out well, and sometimes it worked out badly. And I know that at the time I was trying to do the right thing. And again, I'm sure you've been in that situation too. And sometimes we just want people to understand us. We need to be understood. We need someone to say, yeah, even though he messed up badly, even though he didn't do well, even though it failed, please understand that I was doing the best I can at the time. Listen, I want to tell you this. If you raise children, you're going to have those moments like that where you don't know what the right thing is to do because, it's not written out for you. And you do the best you can at the time. And it could be any number of things. And certainly in my officership, I was confronted with situations where I wasn't sure what to do. I just didn't know. And so you say, well, dear Lord, I'm going to do this, but I hope it's right. And again, most of the time it turned out okay, but sometimes I have to say, I totally misunderstood what was going on and so on. Well, anyway, this is where David found himself. And so he asked God to search him. Now, the word he uses for search, it's a word in Hebrew that means to bore down like you would when you drill a well, or to dig into the earth like you're mining for something. You're looking for something down deep, like you're looking for a vein of gold or lead or copper or something. And he's saying, dear God, go deep into my heart. Look into my heart like a miner looks for that precious metal, and see what's really down there in me. And then show me what you find. And is it good or not? Now, in our country, as a number of countries around the world, there was a gold rush in the mid 1800s, and all these people went looking for gold, panning for gold in the streams, or mining for gold, and so mostly panning for gold, and looking for the ore everywhere they could. And so they came up sometimes getting all excited with something called fool's gold, and it looks kind of like gold. And I have a picture of it here. Looks kind of like gold, but when upon closer examination, it's not gold. It fools people. That's why it's called fool's gold. And so David is saying, pull out what's in my heart and show me, is this the genuine thing or not? Have I fooled myself? And we can do that. Or have I done the right thing? And he's also saying, if I have a secret sin, let me bring it out so I can confess it. And sometimes, again, we can fool ourselves. And he's saying, if I've hidden anything, I want it out in the open. I want to commit it or confess it. This is obviously not the time when he sinned with Bathsheba, when he was trying to hide a sin. No, this is a time where he's saying, if there's some sin that I've forgotten, that I've just glossed over or minimized, let me see it so I can do something about it. If I've had a wrong attitude, oh, dear God, help me to come before you and correct my attitude. Well, the attitude is a little harder sometimes than sin. Sin sometimes we can think of because it may have happened in a moment in time, but an attitude is something that goes over a period of time. And, when you have a wrong attitude, it a lot of times becomes very ingrained. And we sometimes have to go to the Lord and say, change my attitude about this, because I'm having a hard time with it. And Lord, I want to, in whatever I do, live as you want me to live. That's my desire. And that's why David pleads with the Lord. He says, search my heart, search me and know me. And he says, test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. And I'd say to you today, that may be something that you need to do, and you need to stop. If you know, you need to ask the Lord, is there anything in me that's offensive to you? Are you withholding blessing because I'm holding on to a sin or holding on to an attitude that's not pleasing to you? Are you not using me because of what I've kept here? And oh Lord, if there's anything, I come before you now and ask you to please show me so I can confess it, so that things with you and me can be right. Well, I know that's a tough lesson to think about, and it's a tough place to be. And David was in this very place right here, right now, in this psalm. And it's a reminder to us that even though we might mean the right thing, we can offend, we can do wrong, and we need to confess that. And sometimes say, I didn't mean it that way. Or if we realize we really did secretly, sometimes, like I said, we don't realize ourselves what we really mean. And we find out, oh, my word I'm confronted with it. Then we need to not push it down, but come before the Lord and confess it. So that's our challenge. Look at your heart this week and see if there's anything that is in you that might be offensive to God. God bless you.